Spain has a problem.
Spain's socialist prime minister is doubling down on his highly controversial decision to grant legal status to around 500,000 undocumented migrants.
Spain has announced a significant initiative to regularize approximately 500,000 undocumented migrants and asylum seekers. So the question is, how will this turn out for both the Spaniards and their country? The nation has been weathering a long period of economic and political turmoil since the financial crisis of 2008. Yet, there appears to be little respite from the situation. Unlike other major countries in the region, which have clearly overcome the effects of the financial crisis and started to build anew, Spain appears to be stuck in a cycle of debt, unemployment, and failed institutions. Public debt levels have risen to 103.2% of the nation's GDP during the third quarter of 2025. This is one of the highest levels of public debt in the European Union. Germany's levels of public debt stood at 62.3% during the midpoint of 2025. France's levels of public debt stood higher at 117.7%, but it had a much stronger industrial background to support it. This level of public debt is a reflection of a major flaw in the Spanish economy that successive governments have failed to address. Political instability is another major factor that makes an already bad situation even worse. Catalonia's bid for independence has created major issues of national unity, coalition governments are crumbling, and regional tensions are draining valuable resources that could have been better spent on revamping the nation's economy. The political class has again failed to demonstrate its ability to effectively run the nation or to push through the changes that the nation's economy so desperately needs. However, Spain's economic model is still broken.
But not everyone is happy about the growth of tourism in Spain, which is now seeing a backlash in many parts of the country.
The anger is caused by the high number of apartments used as short-term tourist accommodation.
The economy is heavily dependent on tourism, which makes up 12 to 13% of Spain's GDP. Additionally, it has an oversized services sector and construction industry. These are not sustainable economic models. Furthermore, according to Eurostat's 2024 to 2025 statistics, Spain's industrial sector makes up 16% of its GDP, while Germany's industrial sector makes up 26%. Spain does not have an industrial sector with high technology or any significant industry. It has an economy that serves drinks to tourists and builds apartments for them. This is an economic model designed for perpetual subordination. Additionally, Spain's labor market is another indicator of its failed economic model. Youth unemployment is at 25.3% as of October 2025, according to official Eurostat statistics. A quarter of Spain's youth are unable to find jobs. Those who are able to find jobs are stuck with temporary contracts, low wages, and no prospects of career advancement. The result is that Spain's youth emigrate to Northern Europe en masse. Moreover, Spain's pension system is on the verge of collapse. The number of people retiring is growing while the number of people working is decreasing. The European Union has provided Spain with 140 billion euros through its Next Generation EU program. This is essentially a bailout package for Spain.
Spain has always had a low birth rate, but the impact of the financial crisis and high unemployment has further tipped the demographic balance.
Spain is facing demographic extinction. The birth rate has plummeted to 1.16 children born to each woman in Spain, which is well below the 2.1 needed to sustain the population. Meanwhile, the life expectancy in Spain is over 83 years of age. The math here is simple. Spain's population will soon begin to die off. Spain's population will have more citizens over the age of 65 than those under 16 by the year 2050, projected by demographic studies. The working population will continue to decrease, while the population of dependents will increase. Demographic extinction has already begun in the countryside of Spain. Entire sections of Spain have been abandoned, with young people moving to the cities of Madrid and Barcelona in search of work. In the cities, the problem is very different, but no less severe. Housing costs in the city of Madrid and Barcelona have gone up by over 50% in some areas since 2015, according to data on the property market. Young Spaniards cannot afford to live in their own cities, nor can they afford to have families of their own.
Se trata de la tramitación urgente de un Real Decreto con el que iniciamos un proceso de regularización extraordinaria para miles de personas extranjeras que se encuentran en nuestro país.
The Spanish government's handling of these crises is a demonstration of either unprecedented ineptness or a deliberate attempt at demographic replacement. Their plan to approve 500,000 migrants is an example of mass immigration that will change Spanish society. The Spanish government's justification for their mass immigration plan is that it solves a problem of labor shortages in agriculture, construction, hospitality, and elderly care. This is economic propaganda. Spain does not face a labor shortage, but a wage shortage. Spanish employers are unwilling to pay Spanish citizens a competitive wage but want to import cheap foreign labor that can be exploited. The Spanish government's also justifying their mass immigration plan as a solution to fund their pension system. This is a fundamentally flawed argument. Immigration of cheap foreign labor that will, in turn, require pensions in the future is not a solution to a pension crisis, but a recipe for accelerating it. The socialist government justifies this policy by stating economic necessity and humanitarian obligation. However, these justifications only hide the true purpose of the policy, the permanent alteration of Spain's demographics and cultural makeup in favor of political interests. Right-wing parties, especially Vox, understand this policy as a threat to Spanish national identity and social cohesion. Their concerns are valid and considerable. Firstly, immigration at this rate will increase housing competition in Spanish cities already in crises. Prices will rise even further. Spanish citizens will be forced out of their own country. The housing crisis will worsen. Secondly, immigration will increase Spanish unemployment, especially of unskilled workers, who will be forced to compete directly with immigrants who will work for less. This will lead to depressed wages in entire industries. Thirdly, immigration will overburden Spain's public services, such as schools, hospitals, and welfare systems, which are already underfunded and overcrowded. Spanish citizens will receive inferior services because of this policy. Lastly, the integration of 500,000 immigrants is an enormous social challenge Spain is neither prepared for nor willing to face. Previous integration failures in European countries show the potential consequences of this policy: the creation of parallel societies, cultural clashes, and increased crime rates. This issue is not just about Spain. Other European countries are also dealing with the consequences of immigration policies. Poland and Hungary refuse EU migrant quotas in favor of national sovereignty. Italy's government actively works on border security to prevent illegal immigration. Germany faces integration failure and increased social tensions. The European right wing knows what leftist governments refuse to see. Immigration threatens national cohesion and European civilization. The government's optimistic forecast is pure propaganda. Migrants will fill labor gaps, pay taxes, revitalize the countryside, and save the pension system. But this is a fantasy that ignores all evidence and experience. The realistic outcome follows the pattern set in all of Western Europe. Integration will fail, migrants will cluster in cities, fueling competition for housing and leading to ethnic enclaves. Unemployment among native Spaniards will rise as their wages are driven down. Social unrest will rise as cultural conflicts multiply. Services will degrade due to unsustainable demand. The pension system will face even greater future liabilities. Rural areas will continue to be depopulated because migrants, like young Spaniards, will move to cities. The political implications are obvious. Public support for immigration will erode as the negative consequences become impossible to deny. Support for right-wing parties will rise. The left will respond with increased suppression of dissent and accelerated immigration to build a subservient voting bloc. Social polarization will increase. Spain will follow the path of France, Sweden, and Germany into permanent demographic and cultural conflict. The Spanish political class has created a false dilemma: immigration or economic ruin. This is a lie. The choice is simple: support Spanish families with pro-natalist policies, increased wages so that Spanish workers find jobs attractive, improve the pension system, rebuild industry, and support Spanish national interests above globalist ideology. The Spanish government has chosen demographic replacement. It will have catastrophic and permanent effects. Spain's future will not be dictated by Spanish national interests, but by its migration policy, which will serve the interests of political and economic elites, but lead to the end of national cohesion. This is not a solution to Spain's crisis. It is the end of its decline.